I'm not going to listen to you tell me what a drug addict I am.
Tough, Dan.
Careful, I'm one of your constituents now. You wouldn't want to lose the governor's race by one vote.
You can either head back to treatment or live on the streets. It's your choice.
You don't want to set me off.
No.
Some big blow-ups there.
No, we both can get pretty...
You don't roll easily either.
No, we can both get pretty hot, and there were times when we did get hot.
According to TMZ, there's been speculation online that Rob kicked Nick out of the house Saturday night after returning from Conan O'Brien's Christmas party. I don't think Rob kicked Nick out on Saturday night. He's not mean, and it's not in his nature. But I do think he either threatened to kick him out, not that night, but later on, or to set an ultimatum that Nick was going to rehab Sunday or Monday. And I think Nick's reasoning was, fuck you, since I've got nothing to lose and I'm losing my home and freedom anyway. And isn't that the rationale that he acted on? Isn't that what made him snap and do what he did? Because it's well known the one thing Nick wouldn't do again was another session. It would have been his 18th or 19th in rehab.
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't feel. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares in my head, I fear.
Well, right now, Nick is in rehab of sorts. It's called the Twin Towers Correctional Facility, a county jail in downtown LA. If he's wanting to soothe his ruffled feathers right now, sorry, pal, that's not going to happen. A source with direct knowledge tells TMZ Nick left the party of his own accord. We do not know the circumstances under which Nick decided to leave. I think we do. I think we know that he felt humiliated, that he'd basically confronted one of the guests there, Bill Hader, and was basically put in his place, and he didn't really like that. And I think he left in a huff. And I've already shown that the Reiner residence is walking distance from Conan's party, but again, we know Nick's dad said that he was concerned about his son before the party and wanted to keep an eye on him. Well, why wouldn't that be the case after the party as well? The conflagration at the party could only have heightened those concerns in Nick's father, perhaps prompting the parents to chauffeur their son home, or if he'd left, go home to make sure that he was okay. Whichever occurred, I'm sure Rob was pissed at having to leave the party because of his down-and-out hair-trigger son. TMZ broke the story that he and Rob got into a heated argument at Conan's story, but it's unclear if the exchange continued back at the Reiner residence. Well, of course it did. Rob and Michelle ended up dead, didn't they? According to TMZ, Nick was not mentally sound in the period of time leading up to the murders. A source with direct knowledge says that Nick's mental instability went beyond consuming illegal substances. We're told prescription drugs messed with his head. That's not exactly rocket science, is it? But let's get back to the hinky timeline. Why is it so full of holes? Before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. If you're new to the channel, here's a little bit about me, a little 10-second bio. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please do hit the thanks button, and let's get started. According to the New York Post, the road to Nick Reiner's arrest Sunday night is paved with gaping holes, unexplained detours, and lingering questions as he sits in an LA County jail cell accused of the unthinkable, murdering both of his parents in cold blood with a knife in a really brutal, gratuitous way. The hours between Nick's explosive fight with his parents, their brutal murders, and his eventual arrest are clouded by haunting questions about what the accused killer did while his parents lay dead. It's actually extremely early in the investigation and extremely soon for the amount of information, CCTV and the like, to be released. Remember how long it took after the Idaho 4 murders on November 13th for those very first fuzzy images of Brian Koberger's Hyundai Elantra to be released on December 8th. That took weeks, not days.
Today, progress made in the investigation into the stabbing deaths of 4 University of Idaho students. Moscow police released one of the only pieces of tangible information we've gotten back on November 13th. This is the first real description we've gotten since these murders occurred.
Well, Morgan, these murders happened more than 3 weeks ago.
According to the New York Times, from the humiliating exit from Conan O'Brien's Hollywood party to a bizarre hotel check-in in the early hours, the timeline of Reiner's alleged weekend of evil leaves a lot to be answered. Yes, it does, but I honestly don't think Nick left the party, went home, left home, and then returned home again, and then left home again. I suspect when he left home, he had blood on his hands and he was on the run. That's when he left home the first time. According to the New York Post, sources describe an awkward interaction in which Nick interrupted SNL alum Bill Hader during a private conversation at the party, and he was told to butt out. And he was not used to, because of all the coddling, he was not used to being addressed in that way. And this kind of touched on him feeling so insignificant that he didn't really have the kind of substance that the people around him did, even though he felt that he was due that kind of thing. And so Nick just stood there and stared, shocked, exposed, humiliated, before storming off. That's according to an eyewitness. A source close to the family told the New York Times Reiner had rebuked his son, telling him that his behavior was inappropriate. So on top of what Bill Hader said, instead of his father coming to his defense and coddling him, his father criticized him, basically, hit him on the chin in a sense, basically telling him his behavior was inappropriate for a guest in someone else's home. It's okay perhaps to do that in his home, not in this context. Other reports describe a massive blow-up fight between father and son. And you can imagine how humiliating that has also got to be. Not just father and son getting hot, getting in each other's faces, but within the context of a whole audience watching. You can imagine the social death, embarrassment, the humiliation of this taking place kind of on a stage with a lot of people watching, and famous people watching, and people that liked Rob, right? And I think the context of Rob's warm and fussy approach to Nick, with some people calling it babying, I call it coddling. I think Rob's rebuke must have stung like a bee, you-know-what. And Rob and Michelle must have been pissed at their son as well. Michelle as well, ruining the party and humiliating them as well. The New York Post go on to say, we don't know. What we don't know is what their fight was about.
Things up? What did you think was going to happen?
I think we do. I don't think it's rocket science to figure out what the fight was about. Nick, like every other drug addict, wanted his cake and wanted to eat it too. From people we get this insight. Nick Reiner, who dealt with addiction since he was a teen and is now charged with killing his parents, was entitled, according to a source. Nick wanted to live a life that didn't exist. He was entitled. He didn't want to do any work, but expected to be loved the way the rest of his family was. And I think what's missing there is loved and respected. And did he deserve that kind of respect? Remember I said in the previous video that what Nick really feared was insignificance. Well, that was a hunch. Here's the proof of that from his own words, from the same article from People. I had no identity and I had no passions, Nick admitted at the time. And I think the reason I had no identity was because I have a famous dad and a famous grandpa. So he's blaming his lack of agency on the super amount of agency of his parents, or certainly his father and his grandfather. So he's saying it's because of them that I have no identity. And he says that fame sort of informs who you are. So I wanted to edge out of my own identity with a more rebellious, angry, drug-addicted sort of persona.
Things up? What did you think was going to happen?
He clearly thought that whole thing was cool, didn't he? And when you see Nick wandering the streets at night and the solitary figure buying a can of soda or whatever at 4 o'clock in the morning, how cool is that? Well, we know the fight started because of Nick's oddball behavior, and his oddball behavior was likely because he was high on something. And that then led to an escalation, not just of Nick storming out, but his parents reading him the riot act and Nick acting out. It's just a pattern. And what was he doing? He was acting out self-destructively as he had before, except this time not lashing out at lamps, not lashing out at the television or at walls, but at his parents. According to the New York Post, here's the second missing brick missing from the wall. No one seems to know exactly when Rob and Michelle left Conan's party and went home to meet their tragic doom. Yes, that is something of a mystery, but I'm sure their cell phone data and neighborhood cameras will clarify that lickety-split. It's assumed Nick went home after the party, perhaps just long enough to grab a few belongings. But if we don't know the time they arrived back home, can we really assume the couple was still alive? Also, why is he dressed in such a nondescript way? Dark clothing. I don't really think he was just leaving innocently at that point. Anyway, the article goes on to note, around 11:16 p.m., Nick is seen strolling past a local gas station half a mile from his parents' house. Wearing a baseball cap and carrying a backpack, the 32-year-old was seen traveling on foot in a direction away from the family home. But where was he going? Well, we know where he was going. He was going to the pier side. The real question is, why did it take him over 4 hours to get there? Some have speculated that he might have gone to the ocean in Santa Monica and thrown something in it, perhaps the murder weapon. There's a critical void for the nearly 5 hours that followed. He was reported to have checked into the pierside Santa Monica Hotel around 4:15 a.m. and that hotel is just a stone's throw from the Santa Monica Pier. I've actually been there, and it really isn't far away. You can almost see it. Probably if you're on the high enough floor, you can see the pier from that hotel, just down the road. But it's unclear what he was doing from the time he was spotted near his parents' home until check-in. Nick looked tweaked out. That's according to a hotel staffer. He checked into room 207, and a housekeeper who went to clean late Sunday morning found blood in the shower and on the bed, according to the outlet. Perhaps during this period, this Bermuda Triangle in the timeline that we can't account for, perhaps he went to a park to get high. Since he was homeless once upon a time, I'm not sure it would be that weird or hard for him to hang out on a park bench somewhere, perhaps even at the beach, perhaps even at the pier, perhaps even below the pier. The bodies of Rob and Michelle were discovered around 3:30 p.m. Sunday at their Brentwood home, kicking off a massive search. By that time, rigor mortis, which takes around 2 to 6 hours after death, had reportedly set in. The biggest question remains, when exactly did the couple die? Who was killed first? The medical examiner said that they were killed early on Sunday morning. I think that may be a fatal error because it could just as easily have occurred late on Saturday night. I've also said that I suspect Michelle was killed first. I think Rob would have been put up quite a fight and it would have been a lot harder. And so I think Michelle was actually killed first. The air also is cold in mid-December in California, which would have slowed this process of rigor setting in. It's a chemical process. We know that it was 60 degrees Fahrenheit maximum and 48 degrees minimum, which is pretty cold. And that could have slowed rigor. By Sunday night, panic was setting in the community, and the LAPD held a chaotic press conference at about 8:50 p.m., at which authorities did not provide the names of the victims or even mention a possible suspect. And then just 25 minutes later, Reiner was arrested outside the metro station at Expo in Vermont near the USC campus. And a good question is, was he about to get on that metro, and if he was, where was he going to be heading? When unmarked police cars swooped in on him, Reiner immediately held up his hands to surrender. So what was Nick's plan? Where was he going to spend Sunday night? Not at the pier side by all accounts. He checked out. Also, where did he get the clothes he was seen wearing the next day? That little backpack appears to contain, too small to contain the jacket he was wearing. And in the subsequent footage, he's wearing what looks like a new red backpack when he was arrested. And his jacket is also changed. It's sort of green, black with white stripes as well. And I wonder whether he didn't buy that somewhere on Sunday. Another burning question is, how is down on his luck Nick able to afford a hot, high-profile lawyer like Alan Jackson? So a lot of these questions are still persisting, and I'm sure in time we will be able to begin answering them. In any event, I'm not going to take it further than that. Look out for some additional footage on the Ramsey case coming up probably tomorrow. So look out for that. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you guys next time.